guys, this is Neil with Catalyst Machine Works, and I want to introduce an exciting new machine that we've got coming out. This one is called the Merica 5-inch. Okay, here she is in all of her glory. Check this thing out. Now, I'm going to get right into it, okay? If you've been into this hobby or sport, as I like to call it, for any length of time, you've realized that there is an absolute ton of offerings now. I mean, there is people popping up every day designing these machines, the frames, the airframes, the electronics, and everything else you've got here. So why would you want to choose our craft? Why would you want to go with our company? And I'm going to get right into the meat of why you'd want to do that, okay? So if you boil down, you take away all the BS and you concentrate on what it is that makes a racecraft, an FPV racecraft, perform. There are three main things, okay? The first and most important, in my opinion, is weight, the mass of the machine, all right? The lighter that you can get this thing, the better it's going to perform. Now, that is that's a bit of a debate going on right now in this industry. You may or may not be privy to. Some people think that you get the weight, you know, good for you. Whatever weight works best for you. And that may be, there may be some truth to that. However, simple physics will tell you that with a machine that flies in the air, or really any kind of machine that is designed for racing, for getting around a track as quickly as possible, the lighter you can get it, the faster it's going to go. It's as simple as that. All right? So this machine comes in at 62 grams for the frame itself. And that's all the carbon fiber, that's all the fasteners, that's the canopy, everything that you need to build it up. So everything minus the electronics is 62 grams. For a modular frame, that is very light, okay? For a modular frame, that is very competitive weight. Now, we have some unibody frames that we've been selling for a couple years, and those are lighter, bit lighter, but for a craft that's got removable arms, 62 grams is very competitive weight. Now, the next thing, and this is the reason I've got this behemoth sitting here, is aerodynamics, okay? The next thing that is going to make an aircraft perform is aerodynamics, because you are sending this machine through a volume of air, okay? And in particular, the dynamics of airflow over a multi-rotor are actually very complex. Some people think it's wind coming into the frame, and that's what you need to consider, but it's actually different. The motors, when they have props on, of course, are pressurizing the air into columns and pressurizing it and sending it at high pressure over the airframe. So any inefficiencies you've got, look at this thing, like this one, are going to be exacerbated. Did I say that right? Exacerbated? That sounds bad. I'm going to roll with it. So they're exacerbated by the pressurized air volume. Okay. This is actually one of our first frames that we designed. I think it was a couple years ago. And you can see that we were learning at that time. You know, design is an evolution. You learn as you go. But you can see why I've got this here, why I'm showing this to you, is you can see two extremes, okay? You can see a very bad, very inefficient airframe. As these fly through the air, they're sort of flying in this orientation. And you can see a highly, highly efficient airframe. So you can see the difference. So you go out on the internet and you start looking at different frames. What does yours look like that you're looking at? All right? Is it very efficient? Is it going to be, you know, super slippery through the air? Or is it not? Is it going to be more like this big behemoth? All right? So you want to take that into consideration. All right, so what we've done with this machine is we've gone with a thin arm design. So these are referred to now in the industry as a stick arm or a twig arm or however you want to call it. And this is really for high-end racing machines. This is where the industry is leading. Okay, so we're not obviously not the first to do this. This has been done before, but we're headed in that same direction. Okay, now some people are frightened of these. They're frightened of these because they look at it and they go, "Oh my God, there's not very much carbon fiber there. I mean, what if I crash?" You know. And that's a valid concern. You compare the thicknesses of these arms here, and you'd think, well, this one's going to be much more sturdy. But one of the reasons that this machine is different than a lot out there is it's a stick frame that also has durable arms. Now, there's a lot of engineering that went into that to make that possible, and some of that I don't want to talk about, but you can just trust me. It is. It's a very durable machine, okay? But in the event that you do break an arm, it's super fast to replace this arm. It takes like 5 minutes. You take these two screws out, take the motor off, and put a new arm in. Put the motor back on. 5 minutes tops, and you're done. Now, we didn't stop there with regards to aerodynamics. So we have the thin arms, which is very, very important. And also, you'll notice that this top section, this canopy, this pod is very small. There's not a lot of material right here, okay? So it's incredibly aerodynamic efficiency we've got going on, all right? And it's made possible by the advent of these marvelous, I'm so happy RunCam did this, but they took this type camera, all right, which became pretty much the standard. This is referred to, and I'm preaching to the choir to a lot of you guys, but this is a HS 1177. All right, pretty much standardized this across the board for most frame makers, and they shrunk it down into this tiny little package. All right, so that allowed us to take this canopy and also this top section and also shrink it down and get the profile, get the amount of material that's headed into the quote-unquote wind as small as possible. And you can see, right, that there's just not much there, okay? Some frames may have these stick arms, but they have this big center section. You think about that. When you put your hand, when you're driving in your car and you put your hand out the window, all right, hold your hand like that and then hold it like that. And you can tell the difference in the amount of force that is being pushed on your hand. It's no different for these machines. So that material, that big section there, it does matter. It absolutely matters. All right, so the third main aspect of an airframe that's going to affect its overall performance is something that some of you may not consider, but it's placement of the motors. Placement of the motors with respect to each other. All right, and so obviously this is a stretched X design, okay? The rear motors have been moved in this direction, and that aids with getting a cleaner air volume, less turbulent air to the rear props, okay? So you could imagine as this thing is running through the air, the front props are pulling in air and they basically starve the rear props. So you want to get those as far back as you can, right? Of course, there's a compromise there, how far you want to go back. Now, we're not the first to do that, all right? That's been done by plenty of frame designers, okay? But we took it a step further, all right? So here is an example of one of our unibody frames. This is actually the Norris. I would like to mention that we use the same exact motor placement as our Superlight line. This is the Superlight Norris edition, okay? But we took it a step further, and what we did is we staggered the arms, okay? So by the way that these arms connect in here, there's a little spacer that allows you to take the rear arms and move them up with respect to the front arms. So that gets the props even further up, and you get a better scenario for air coming into the rear props. All right, so I have gone through now and reviewed some of the main reasons why this guy is different. You know, yes, every week or every few days there is somebody else coming out with a new frame. All right, and so it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You're just like, oh, okay, wow, another frame, how exciting. But this one actually is exciting, and it actually is different. All right, so those are some of the main reasons. Now, there is an absolute ton of features and differences and things that are so cool about this. But I'm going to leave that to the second part of this video. So if you're the kind of person who likes to make an informed decision and you love to, soak in information, well, you can listen to the rest of our video. If not, there you go. You can turn it off now. All right, so we're back at the shop now, and I'm going to give you guys a detailed review of the machine, talk about some of its features, and just show you what it looks like up close, how the electronics mount inside, and all that jazz. So here she is. I'll let you get a good close-up look. Sometimes it's better to get to see a video like this, because sometimes you can only gather so much information from pictures. Okay, so this is green canopy. There's going to be various colors available with your purchase. Here is an example of the type TPU that we're using. So obviously these are different canopies for our Superlight line. And this is only some of the colors that we're going to have available. But here's what the red's going to look like. The blue, check that out. Black. And this one is really cool. This is clear. So you can put LEDs underneath the canopy and it'll glow, which is super cool. All right, so there's that. All right, so here it is. You can see where the Velcro strap is running through, right there. This guy is designed for 4-in-1 ESCs, but you can also use one of these guys. So this is a all-in-one ESC flight controller combo. This is the Asgard. I don't know how to pronounce it. Either way, it sounds ridiculous, but nevertheless, that's what they decided to call it. So one of these will fit in here. In this, I call this the lower bay right here. There's actually plenty of room for one of these type boards in there. Okay, so there we go. All right, so one of the very unique features about this machine that really aid in the flight characteristics that you have, which I can only describe as really just silky smooth. That's the best description I can give. You'll have to fly it and find out. But what we've done here is we've figured out a way to decouple the flight controller from the motors. Soft mounting your flight controller is really important. It helps with the flight characteristics of the craft. So you got these motors making vibration, and you need to remove those from the flight controller. So what we did is mounted it to the TPU canopy. Okay, so it's not mounted to the main structure here, where you've got all the vibration. So in doing that, it decouples. So any flight controller you use, even if it's a unit, let me grab one I've got over here, my little box of tricks. All right. Even if you've got one like this. This is let's open this up here. This is a very popular flight controller. This is an omnibus. And as you can see, it doesn't come with any grommets for soft mounting. Well, if you buy this machine, when you install the flight controller into the TPU canopy, it is soft mounted by default. So that is pretty neat. Now, let me show you guys how that works. Okay, so for maintenance on this guy, What you do is remove these 4 screws holding the TPU canopy down. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that now. Okay, so if you want to get access to the components, take 4 screws off, and there you go. And now you can see here how the flight controller is mounted in. Now this happens to be a race flight board, and theirs do come with grommets. You can see you can still use a flight controller that has included grommets like that. But that's how it mounts in. So all we've got connected up to the flight controller, of course, is the signal wires running from the 4-in-1 ESC, which I might add, this particular one we're using is a Speedix 30 amp, and it comes with a plug. So if you unplug that, you can almost take this entire thing, just take it off the craft. Okay, the only other wires I've got plugged in here, or soldered in rather, are the power wires to the VTX, which I happen to have mounted up in the canopy. You can also mount the VTX right in here. Okay, so you're going to get some better airflow down here, better cooling for the VTX. So up to you which direction you want to go. There's also holes here and a big hole in the side and a big hole in the back for cooling for the VTX if you want to put it up in the canopy. But that's how that works. Alright, so I went ahead and off camera took the propellers off just to give us some more space, get those out of the way. The next thing that I want to show you guys is, how everything else is mounted in here. I don't want to leave it a mystery. So I'm going to take and also by way of showing you, it demonstrates how easy this thing is to work on. It's incredibly easy. You'd think, oh my God, it's a canopy craft. Oh Lord, it's going to be hard to work on. I can't do that. You're wrong. You're very, very wrong. It's really easy to work on. Watch this, okay? So let me go get a proper screwdriver so I can hold these guys. Wait, I happen to have one here. Alright, all you got to do is take off the 4 nuts. That's what she said. Holding down the flight controller. Now, keep in mind, this is a prototype, right? So I've got, hex head socket screws in here, but it actually is designed to use plastic Phillips head, and so for production unit, that's what you're going to get. But all right, so now what we can do is take this flight controller right out of here. Need to go ahead and clip the zip tie I've got holding on the antenna, and we can pull this guy right out of here. Okay, so you can see what I've done is I've got this is a Unify Pro high volt, but I've got it double-sided stick taped to the top of the flight controller, and then you can see the little UFL linear antenna coming off. And so that's it. And then there's the camera. This will only fit these micro cameras. There's 2 available. There's one from RunCam, which this is. There's also one from Foxeer. Okay, so there you go. Now you've got access. Very easy to work on this thing. All right, one thing I would like to point out, which some people may look at and be confused about, is the length of the antenna tubes. All right, some people may look at that and go, whoa, 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 why are these so short? Well, the reason is because what you actually need, the only thing that you need really exposed is this length here. All of this black is shielded. So as long as you've got this sticking out, that's really all you need to get range, the range that you need to fly this thing. All right, so if you go and have these antenna tubes that are sticking out over here, that's really wasted. There's no reason to do that. Okay, so when you install your receiver, make sure to sort of tuck the wires. You can see how I've got the wires wrapped around here, zip tied, and then come back around. All right, so I want to quickly reiterate something I mentioned before, is that for maintenance purposes, if you want to set up your craft so that you can completely take this this pod off of here, all you got to do is go and remove the plug for the ESC. Right? And this guy could come off. Now, I've got this the power leads for the VTX Direct soldered here. So you'd have to have a small plug, but you could do like a micro JST plug, doesn't weigh anything, and you could take this entire thing off. Now, how easy is that to get to all your components? Right, there you got access to the 4-in-1, and you can also see how that guy's mounted in there. Plenty of space for pretty much any 4-in-1 that's going to be on the market. Lots of room in there. Okay, so this is one of the few craft that has a pod section, a center section that is very tiny, you know, very slippery through the air, but yet you've got plenty of space for your components. All right, so next thing I want to talk about is the arms, how they work. Okay, we've designed this thing to have thin arms so the aerodynamics are ideal, but they're not fragile. They're sturdy little dudes. It's hard to break them. However, if you do break it, well, how hard is it to get this thing off? Okay, so all you got to do to replace an arm is pull out one screw, then you pull out this outer screw here. Now, again, this is a prototype, so you'll see there's nuts on the bottom, but we're going to have 2 captured nuts, so you won't need to fumble with this nut here, like I'm going to have to do. Not that it's a big deal. The reason we've got this on the prototype is we wanted to see which direction, which route we wanted to go for production. But all right, so that comes out like that. Take the screw out. Bam. The arm is off. All right. Now, you don't even have to completely pull this inner screw out. You can just loosen it, because this is a slot. So you got a hole and a slot, and you just pull it right out. Okay, and obviously you're going to want to take your motor off, cut whatever you've got holding the wiring to the arm, grab a new arm, and put it on. I mean, you can do that in between heats. That's a 5-minute deal. Really, really quick, very, very efficient. All right, so another big question that a lot of people have is the FPV antenna. Now you see that I've used a very small, very lightweight linear antenna connected by a UFL connector here. You don't have to go that route if you don't want. You can use an SMA style antenna. Okay, I've got an SMA connector here, and where that's going to go is right here on the bottom. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and install that and show you what it looks like installed. All right, so off camera I went ahead and installed the SMA connector into the frame. You can see how it connects here on the bottom plate. There's a little loop here. The pigtail runs around and then into a hole in the back of the canopy. In this mounting scenario, you probably want to have your VTX down in the lower bay so that the pigtail will reach. You can see there is a little protrusion here coming out the back of the canopy, and that's to support the antenna, and what you do is you take a zip tie and you run it through these two slots in the back and hold this guy tight, and that gives some bit of stress relief in the event of a rollover crash. Now, okay, you can see that this is in close proximity to the battery. What you want to do is use this mounting location if you're running one of those square batteries that is in the shape of a square, okay? But if you're using one of these rectangular batteries, which are much more common, most people have these, what you want to do is use the mounting location that does not exist on this prototype because it's a prototype. What we're doing for the production version is we're going to also have one of these little holes right here, one of these hoops for mounting the SMA right here. Okay, it's going to be on the side, so there's going to be room for the Velcro strap to run through, but it's going to be coming out right here on the side, just a little loop. Okay, that will allow you to move this SMA over here, and then there's going to be another protrusion that's coming out right there. So that gives you two mounting locations to mount this up. So you could imagine that if your rectangular battery is connected like this, that your SMA is actually sitting over here, okay? So that allows you to run both type batteries with the same craft in conjunction with an SMA FPV antenna scenario. All right, so there's two more items that I want to discuss briefly, and that is the aesthetics, okay? So you can see that on this prototype, it's pretty wild, you know, color scheme. What we're going to have available for the production model is you're going to get your pick of the canopy color, of course, but all the fasteners are going to be black, okay? Even though this is a highly patriotic ode to our veterans, men and women who are in service right now protecting us, we realize that a lot of people may not necessarily want to go with a red, white, and blue color scheme. So what we're going to do is we're going to have available an upgrade that will have red and blue fasteners, right? So if you combine that with a red or blue or white canopy and your props and motors and whatever else, you could really Americanize the hell out of this thing. So that's going to be possible as well.